call 911 immediately.
What can I tell them the issue is?
What might happen if the police were called on your child with special needs or, God forbid, arrested? What do parents need to know? You know, as a parent, I was surprised to learn that my child is at an increased risk of being arrested. And, I know from my own family also when my child's behavior has gone off the charts, I've considered calling the police to intervene, but was afraid of the ramifications. I've also witnessed a child with autism being arrested, and that felt like a gut punch as a parent with a child with special needs, as well as being even just an observer watching this. It felt like a nightmare. I can't imagine what the child went through or what the parents went through. So I'm Shantae, and this is Parenting Special Needs Live. And today we've asked Dennis Debbaudt to join us and share with us some information and help parents know some facts. He is currently considered the foremost global expert on autism management in law enforcement and emergency response, and an expert with over 40 years of autism risk and safety for first responders. And I've asked him to speak with us today because I think this is such an important topic. And I also want to point out that I don't think that, yes, autism is out there, but I think children with special needs, with sensory issues, with other issues, it can impact all of our lives. And I think it's something we need to be aware of. So please welcome Dennis. Dennis, welcome. Can you share?
Hi, everybody. How's everybody doing?
Can you share with us briefly, like what got you, how you got to be the current global expert on autism safety management and risk management?
Sure. The easy answer is I used to have black hair and a lot of it. So the longer you're on the planet, the more likely that you can become a global expert on really anything. I just wanted to clear up that it's not 40 years experience, or I probably wouldn't be here if it were 40. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I began my professional look into the interactions between children and adults with autism and the police in 1991. At that time, my son was just shy of his 8th birthday. We had contacts with police that I couldn't have been prepared for, certainly at that time. In the 1980s, this would have been the frontier of autism. So the rate of autism was much lower than it was today. The understanding, not only among law enforcement, but just among the general population about autism was almost non-existent in the 1980s. Context troubled me. And by background, I have written and reported research for the Detroit News, Detroit Monthly Detroit Magazine, the Detroit Free Press, and for print and television current affairs or documentary programs all over the world. So that's what I had been doing since the 70s and through the time our son was born. By the late 80s, and with these contacts, I wanted information that I felt the police could use at that time to understand the situations that we were all in it together. So it's not like it's not us and them, we're all together.
Right.
And I sought out that information that I thought, it was a forethought, that the information would be available in the late 80s. It wasn't. So when I discovered that this subject matter, these interactions between police and autistic people, there had been no reporting on it, then that became a mission. And that was 1991. So all these years later, I've interviewed hundreds, if not thousands of people who are connected to the autism community and a like number of law enforcement professionals. And I've reported on it over 60 times, including books and videos and book chapters and reports for Sheriff Magazine and for the FBI Law Enforcement Bulletin and on and on and on. But I do know that we can be better prepared for not only what might happen, but how it can happen. And we do have some techniques, or I would call it a safety plan. And each one of us, whether we know it or not, we all have a safety plan. What are you going to do if the police pull me over and you're driving down the street? Most people learn those skills through the experience or through being able to absorb examples. And that's not the best way for many people with autism to learn. They are more concrete learners. Things need to be spelled out. It needs to be served in short duration, simple messaging, simple imaging. And arguably that we all learn best when the messages are simple. And so it's no different for us than it is for the police. They train for emergencies over and over and over again to ingrain that into their rote memory skills. So even under the duress of an emergency, and they're under the same duress we are, it's not like they are free from anxiety, fear, and pressure. That's just not the case. Their training can carry through because they are preparing for it. And so that gets us back to our safety plan. We're better prepared when we have a plan in place that we've rehearsed, that we've thought about, and that we continue to add to and adapt the plan. So it's something that I would recommend every family, every parent, every person with autism to consider having a plan, and then look in the mirror and ask yourself, what is my greatest fear? What am I afraid of? What is my greatest concern? What would prevent me from calling the police? And are my expectations real, or are they a part of my imagination, my expectations of what the police are going to do when they arrive?
Right.
Sometimes,
I'm gonna ask on what if, like I've considered calling the police before when my daughter does have severe behavior issues, but I didn't not do that. I did not call because I was concerned about the ramifications of what might happen. But there have been instances as a family where we've thought the behaviors are off the charts. And I know it's awful, you know what I mean? Like, and I've had other family members going, you should call the police, you should call the police. But we haven't done it because of my concern of what might happen after, or during. So
yeah, well, what was happening that got you to the point where you were considering calling the police, and what got to the attention of people that you knew who were saying you should call the police?
But yeah, her anxiety was through the roof, and her behavior was through the roof to the point that she was trying to hit people, and she's not a little kid anymore, so kind of having a meltdown or anxiety thing. And she's a big person now, so she could hurt somebody. So that was kind of it, and we were kind of like, we couldn't get her to calm down, and no redirecting or whatever we tried was not working, and it was kind of a scary situation. So
now I hear you. Now you're giving the kind of detail that the police would sure appreciate, and especially before they even arrive for the contact. The more they know about the contact and the individual who may be in crisis, the better support they can provide. If they arrive and they flat out do not know, someone is called in a suspicious person contact, and that's all they've heard, then they have a much wider area that they have to narrow down, and in a hurry, as to what is going on here. And of course, you're also describing one of the three top highest risk contacts for individuals who have autism or intellectual disability or any form of mental illness, or people who have cognitive disabilities, behavioral concerns. And that is aggression, right? We can use different terminology, but when it gets to the point where that person is either harming themselves through biting, kicking, scratching, bleeding, or using a tool or a weapon or other object to harm themselves or harm others or attempt to, that's pretty serious. And so there comes a time where you may need the assistance of police. Their role in all of this has changed over the years. There's a history to how law enforcement responds to these contacts. Now, we're at the cusp here in 2021 of seeing some, or potentially seeing some changes to how the police perform their service that we can't do without. That we can't have a society without some form of law enforcement and policing. But are there better ways to approach crisis than our current? Well, we really have to look at the past to find out how we got to the place we're in now. That makes some parents, and it's not an illegitimate concern that anyone would have about, I'm not sure if I should call the police. I'm concerned about what they may do. What's their obligations to make sure that people aren't threatened from each other. And even if you know each other and it's a loving relationship, and the threat can be not born from anger or not liking the person or wanting to commit harm and having the capacity to make that decision. It can be, it comes from different areas that perhaps it's too much sensory information, something has changed in my environment, I am feeling ill on the inside and I cannot express that to my care provider, my parents, family, and it's causing discomfort to the point where my only solution is violence or aggression, however you want to call it, a meltdown or however. If it gets to the point where someone is a threat to the well-being of themselves or another, there is a point there where certainly where law enforcement is concerned, they may have to take that person into custody and take them to a place where they can be observed by professionals in the field to make a better determination than a frontline police officer as to whether this person continues to be a threat to themselves or another. Their very actions will be the guide in most circumstances as to whether or not someone is a threat. So if I'm beating the heck out of somebody, I am a threat to somebody else.
Right.
And that threat needs to be stopped. Yeah, we just can't let that go on. There have been not a lot, but enough that it's reportable over the 30 years I've been looking at this, of people who have intellectual disability, including autism or others, or mental illness, or under some behavioral stress to the point where their aggression has killed other people and permanently injured other people. And these other people are oftentimes their parents, brothers, sisters, siblings, other relatives, people that they know. It can extend out to people that you do not know, and that can happen too. But under those circumstances, it's you can not call the police, but you could pay the price in harm. And then ultimately the police may be arriving anyway. So our choices none of them are good. The history of this goes back into the 50s and 60s and 70s, where in America, many people who were under this kind of crisis would either be living in or would be quickly taken to what we used to call an institution, a mental institution. So we ended those institutions as the main provider of our mental health services, especially emergent ones or emergency mental health services. And the intent was good. We will provide the service in the community where people will live. They're not going to live in institutions anymore. They will live in the community. They'll be your neighbors, your friends. They'll live in their homes. They'll live as most of us do. But that didn't work out so well. We didn't follow it up as a society with enough funding to make sure that people who needed this assistance in the community where they lived were getting it. And then it has evolved over the last, certainly in the 21st century, to the point where our county sheriff's offices are now America's primary emergency mental health care provider. And that's not a place any of us want to see happen. But until our society makes the decision that we will, we want to see the kind of change where better services and better places to provide it through more people who are qualified to do this can occur, that's going to take some change, and it's going to take the stuff that we all find dear too. It's going to take putting our money behind that. So it's not just a point of not having the police show up or let's train the police better. There's a much larger system, and the system, in fact, is our society. What do we believe is important out here? So in the meantime, yes, we can train law enforcement. The simple for us to make a positive impact will be to think about a safety plan and then think about the words disclosure. Disclosure when it's appropriate to disclose. There are times where you don't need to disclose. If you're a more independent autistic individual and you're in a convenience store buying a candy bar or a bag of chips or something, you do not need to tell them you're autistic.
Right.
But if the police are on the scene, this is probably a good time to let the police know that you are autistic, so that their training, if they've had it, and if it was at a sufficient enough quality, then that training can be used. Now they have a broader opportunity to use more of the training tips that are couched in the philosophy of invest more time, give people more space, simplify your communications, calm down, project a calm demeanor if you want to get one back. All of these are the same. It's the same philosophy that's been taught over the years in SWAT training, in crisis intervention training or CIT training. These specialty parts of law enforcement were formed to work with people who have disabilities. They, of course, need to be upgraded. Autism as a condition, a diagnostic condition, was pretty rare when my son, and he'll be leaving here soon, going to work, but he'll be 38 next month. So when he was 4, 5, 6, autism was occurring at the rate of 1 in 2,500 to 3,000 people in America, not 1 in 54. So there used to be a tough sell with law enforcement into the 90s when the numbers were still, 1 in 1,250 or 1 in 800. And they had good reason to say, if we put training time into people that are going to be 1 out of 800 of us, we won't control the streets anymore. We'll just be training all the time because there's that many different conditions in life that they could prepare for. There's a time to triage it, but those days are long gone. There's 1 in 54 and up. So we have the attention of law enforcement. I think for families, parents such as you and me and everyone else out here, your readers, the people who are tuning in, our greatest asset, the number one thing that we can do to manage the situation is to provide information. The best way to get it is to have it before the police arrive. So if it's embedded in the 911 system and they can review it before they even arrive at the location, the chances.
What can I tell them the issue is?
If you have an autistic child, you can call in and talk to our records clerk, and she can pull up your address. It'll give us the address, it gives us the closest cross streets, and she would put the information in it, and there would be a button up here, it'd say caution or something, and we'd hit that button and pull it up, And it would tell us, just like that does how to get to that address, it would also tell us that there's an autistic child there, and you could put all your information.
Fill out the Autism Emergency Contact Form.
Of a safer contact go up, up, up. The more specific it is to the particular person, they even go up, up, up. It's like the goal for police. In the training room, I teach in my classes that you want disclosure. You want people to let you know that they have a condition that requires some accommodations. That is their green light. Now ask more questions. They now know what is the cause of the aggression or the behavior, or they now have an answer as to why they were called in the first place. So crisis calls where there may be aggression is one of the top three. The other two are suspicious person calls, where folks find even typical behavior of an autistic person or other similar condition may, to the untrained eye, seem unusual enough to seem suspicious. Suspicious enough to get on the phone and dial 911 and say, you know, there's a suspicious guy out here in the front of my house, and he's not leaving, and he's really suspicious. And so the 911 telecommunicator will say, thank you, sir. We have someone dispatched and on their way right now. So what does that effectively do? It gets the police into an interaction with proximity. They get a little close to you, and they do not know that you have autism, because that person on the phone could not have known that.
Right.
All they're reporting is suspicion. So that has to be figured out during the interaction.
Right.
There are ways that it can be. There's technology, communications technology that already exists. When it's bundled together, this may provide some solutions. So if somebody were carrying a chip, an RFID chip, which is what we carry in our credit cards, in our SunPass, or a pass for your car. There's a variety of chips that we use to stock stores, to measure wildlife. We could use that kind of technology bundled up with radio frequency and global positioning and cell tower and a variety of other communications technology to alert police who have a reader. So if the reader were in their pocket, they could get within 70 feet of you and it would go off, and it would tell them that there is an autistic or a vulnerable person nearby, and it would also light up, and they'd be able to press a button. And this is the future, is now. Press a button and read about that person, see their photograph, and get that special information that is the byproduct of a safety plan. So the safety plan can be written out. It can be hung from a lanyard. It could be within a credit card that you, if you had the reader, you could read it. It could be on a piece of paper. It can be in a lunchbox, it can be in a backpack, on the sun visor of a car, in the glove box. These things are easy to duplicate, but bottom line, getting the information into the digital age or go old school 20th century, paper, as long as it's legible and it's simple, it's easy to read. It's an asset. It's the gold standard we want for ourselves. So anything we want for our children who are who may have disability, don't we want that for ourselves too?
Yes.
We manage risk differently than folks who have behavioral or brain-based conditions. So many of us are going to acquire brain-based conditions, including Alzheimer's, dementia, any sort of trauma to the brain, whether we made it happen or it came as a result of an accident. These can change how we manage risk. So when presented with a risk and we don't recognize it as a risk, you can't manage it.
Right.
That, for many of our independent children, adolescents, and adults on the spectrum or with related conditions, less independent, their skills of risk, recognizing a risk and then managing it appropriately are real low. In some cases, it doesn't exist.
So So is that chip is not available yet? Is it, or is it?
Yeah, well, there are variations of it. What I'm proposing is a little leap into the near future, and that would be bundling up different
Things to help.
transmitters. It's simply a transmitter. It's driving down the road and switching channels on your radio is radio frequency. Your radio is the receiver and the antenna is at the building when you drive by the radio station. You can see it.
Right.
For global positioning system, it is being carried in outer space along with us. So it's born, you have to hit the global satellite to have it come back down and triangulate your position or be able to use your cell phone. Those are all
Right.
GPS.
So it might be in the cell phone or something like that, or
It will have a variety of places. Some people who have disability aren't going to. They'll take this phone and that'll get gone in a hurry.
Right.
They're not going to carry this around. They would sooner throw it away. And wrapping something around the wrist, they may or may not keep it on.
Right.
In the case of RFID, it doesn't necessarily have to be literally on your person. It can be something that you wear.
Okay.
We need cheap enough transmitters that you could embed them into the lining of a shirt. You wouldn't even notice it.
Right. Well, and
You could have 20 or 30 of them on you. You can't get rid of all of them.
well, the reason I'm asking that is because the situation, I witnessed a situation where a young man was with autism, had a situation at a park, and they were minding their own business, and someone said something to them and he set him off. So anyways, my thought is, when he went off, there's no way that somebody would have been able to, like, he's going to hand somebody a card and let them know because he was by himself at the moment. You know what I mean? So no one's going to know that he had autism or that he was struggling. I mean, I did because I witnessed it, so I was able to tell the police, but it was awful. I mean, how one little situation could flip, and somebody saying one thing could make somebody flip and go into a situation that caused a problem. So that's why I was thinking of, how do they get that information,
So there can be a variety of ways, and I would say don't rely on just one. Go
Right.
old school, go new school. Have the tech. If it works, great. If not, you got to have backup in print. If that person is an individual who, and a decision has to be made early on when in development of a safety plan as to whether or not the individual that you're devising this plan for, crafting it, you're going to have to make a decision about how independent they are.
Right.
Baseline for less independent would be a question such as this: can this person safely cross a street 100% of the time? And if the answer is anything other than a resounding yes, it's a no. And if it's a no, then I would make the case that this is an individual who needs a responsible adult with them, with proximity, whenever they are out in public situations. And so there are plenty of autistic people who will be able to cross the street when confronted with a body of water and they do not know how to swim. They're not going to jump in and drown. They are not going to leap in front of a speeding car or enter the homes and dwellings of other people. So the safety plan has to take that into account. So many times the safety plan and how it may work out in an emergency will become the role of the care provider. So you also have to have something in place if when the care provider is now hurt or has a health emergency or becomes injured, or it's a car crash and they're now injured, they're out.
Right.
Now the people who need a care provider, and the care provider is no longer functioning anymore. That really screams out for having some form of handout with the individual, and having the disclosures travel with you. So have it not only connected to your home, but connected so it can be useful when you're on foot or when you're in your vehicle or a group of vehicles. So they could also be registered with the 911 call center. So if that vehicle were on a traffic stop or in an accident, police could call either the plate number in or a unique ID that's created for situations and quickly access specialized information that the safety, again, the byproduct of the safety plan is describing the unique needs of somebody who has disability and is under duress in an emergency. What do you want the next person on the scene to know about your loved one?
Right.
That's pretty much it. It's about, and I would argue for anyone out here listening, we all need one for ourselves too.
Yeah, helpful. Yeah. Do you know, like, is there one already, like something that's like something they fill out? Like, is there a safety plan that's already created that?
Well, I have a template at my website, autismriskmanagement.com. You can go up there and it's the autism emergency response card. And it's really a template. It's a questionnaire.
Right.
That gets you going down this road. You're not going to write a book chapter on this.
Right. You just want something so they can get to the
Autism emergency contact form.
The highlights of care and comfort for short duration contact.
right.
And which really highlights what is going to piss people off, what is going to calm them down. What do they like? What foods? What
Right.
objects? What do they hate?
Right.
When you know that kind of information, please tell me. Now we're really cooking. When I know what somebody likes and what they dislike, that allows me a lot of latitude to avoid things that will set them off. It'll help calm people down quicker when I'm talking about things that I know you like.
Right. Yeah, no, that's great. So definitely a safety plan. Anything else that I did not ask that you wanted to share about that?
Yeah, that we make these safety plans does not mean that you're going to have, but you're better off having the plan in place and never using it than the opposite, needing it and not having it. So a safety plan, just my final words on that. And that would be something that when you develop your plan, you're going to do it with a group of people that care. And obviously, and typically it will be the parents, but it shouldn't be limited. And it should be something that you need to pay attention to. And I say at least once a month, you need to set aside 30 minutes to an hour or longer if necessary to review what you have, to take things out that aren't relevant anymore and put things in that have become relevant. So it's a living document that needs to be changed. It'll never be finished, but it can literally save a life out here with a little bit of planning. That's all it is. It's a plan.
Wow, that's great. No, I appreciate that. That's awesome news. So I can't thank you enough for sharing with us.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you for being with us today on Parenting Special Needs Live. In case no one's told you today, you are doing a great job. Be good to you. I'll talk to you soon.